I know you have heard to silence your cell phones, but tonight's performance, we ask you to silence it, but to bring it out, and to make sure you connect to the Wi-Fi, and then connect to your ability to correspond and text responses at various moments throughout the performance. Tonight, we want to especially thank J.D. Talisic, Director of the Cultural Programs here at the National Academy of Sciences. J.D. Alana Quinn, Senior Program Manager as well at the Cultural Programs. Alana? There. So, like we've all experienced during the pandemic, we actually have to announce that tonight one of our actors, Khalil Cage, tested positive on Friday. Little bit of a little uncertainty Friday night, but our stage manager, Tiffany Trapnell, who would normally be sitting here, will be performing Khalil's role in tonight's performance off book. And so we are absolutely thrilled to have you here. And again, thank you all for coming.
So now we need to take the house lights down.
In March 2021, poet Naomi Shihab Nye, David Hassler of the Wick Poetry Center at Kent State University, and Tyler Meyer of the University of Arizona's Poetry Center launched an interactive website for the Global Vaccine Poem Project, inviting anyone to respond to prompts about the pandemic and vaccination. And they did. Thousands of people from India to Ireland, from Maine to Hawaii. In 2022, the Kent State University Press published an anthology of these poems, Dear Vaccine, Global Voices Speak to the Pandemic. Here, tonight, the conversation continues, and you are all a part of the conversation. We're going to invite you to share your thoughts with texts on your phones throughout the performance. Now, this process may bring up some strong emotions, and that's okay. You can share your emotions with your thoughts and your writing as we consider these important questions. What did we learn while alone? Who were we then? Who are we now? Who are we? It's the hugs we didn't know we loved. It's the class we didn't know we would miss. It's the smiles we didn't give enough. The things we never said, never did, never will. It's the lives we thought would never end, jerking to a stop before our very eyes.
We carried ourselves like precious, fragile cargo. Don't touch, don't come close. We had to erect barriers, become invisible, mask our faces, lose our smiles. Dear vaccine, won't you save us? Let us bask in each other's warmth again. Cross the 6-foot distance. Give us the hugs we missed. The air we never thought of doubting. Let us remember the touch of worryless hands. Give us back the life we never knew we loved.
I didn't know how much I loved to touch. The mail, library books, handrails on the city bus. Or to sit there beside a stranger, sharing our breath in that moving space. Vaccine, restore us to our momentary kinship.
I liked being able to see the food stuck in between people's teeth. I was reassured they had at least something to eat.
We liked going to sleep, thinking of waking to the simple pleasure of good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. We liked not being roused by the news that another of our friends is dead.
How quietly beautiful is the ordinary sound of things breathing.
When a child falls asleep with her head close to your ear.
When a grandfather snores in his favorite armchair.
When at last you can open the door to nothing more urgent than the sound of wind moving like a blessing over the cities and fields. Don't make us immune to all the ways our world was already virus, a doom, though some could not see. When we lift our masks, may we each be seen and breathe each other's breath as if it were oxygen.
For too long, I have been a goldfish circling a small bowl, a goose hissing at danger near my brood, a spider fretting my carefully spun webs rent in this storm. At midnight, I am a mosquito playing vibrato on the E string, a loon wailing for those I cannot touch, a doe in strange woods, twitchy. Vaccine, please, bring me back to my anthropoid self. A woman who wakes without dread to a day rife with possibility.
Give back the wobbly table at the front of my physical classroom where my students and I broke bread, read a braided essay while snow fell out my window. Let elders more time to speak in Dine, Micmac, and Haida. Voices not muted by hospital glass, but heard laughing shoulder to shoulder. Grant us the perfume of a crowded opera, the useful work, the sacred plume of sawdust, chalk dust, and pollen, dandelion butter on our naked noses. We liked kissing!
I did.
Skin to skin, heart, soul to fingertip, call it pulse.
Call it touch.
Call it love in daylight and dark.
It's the window shade of singleness. Lift it, curtain, draw it. Dear Vaccine, take the first bow so we might take a second and a next.
A kiss, a together ride, a touch.
We are waiting for your shine inside our bodies now.
Kick our hearts high to kiss again when you have danced inside of us.
We liked kissing!
I did.
Make us well for one another.
Vaccine, no more terrible shadows. No more terrible landings. Vaccine, believe in our lives. Kiss us, please.
We love. What do we love? What new things did you discover to love? The hugs, the smiles you didn't give enough, kissing. Take the next several minutes and tell us about your pandemic experience. It can be one word, a phrase, or several sentences. Text your response into your phone here, now. Dear vaccine, you can't save us from the losses we've already endured. You can't save us from the war against Black bodies. You can't end racism, ethnocentrism, xenophobia, white supremacy, greed, and violence. But you, vaccine, you can allow us to safely gather again, to mourn and grieve together.
Make school a safe place again. We knew that, for some, school was a haven, a home, a hope. We know that now, for all. School is a vulnerability, a venture, a variant. Dear vaccine, please, make school safe again.
You gave me my first piece in a year. With one shot, I felt like the world might spin aright on its axis once more. It had stopped, you know. Dad, Jim, Dick, Stefan, Peggy, Phil, Connie, Kim, all gone. You arrived in time for me, but too late for them.
If my mother were alive, she'd be pushing her walker through the line for a taste of you. If my sister were alive, she'd be saying, "Don't hesitate, go, drink of this cup." If my father, who survived the war, were alive, he'd be standing in line on his tired legs, grateful and weeping.
It's the so-called first world that will be saved. Here in other nations, we wait in line. We yearn to be seen.
You bring hope to a tired flock that lost way too much over the last year. And as I say grazie and caress my left arm, I think of the still too many who cannot afford your touch. Come in thousands, in millions, in billions, overcome borders and barriers, and meet all of those who need you more.
vaccine. It's too late for Bahab, but you can save his wife and daughter. They still water his roses and feed his canaries, but cannot watch his last video again. When he tried to teach his class on Zoom, and his coughs were more than his words.
Vaccine, please be kind to black and brown bodies who have already endured so much.
Yellow peril is on the rise, fear of it never dies. With our slanted eyes, yellow skin, we never did fit in. Speaking tones discordant to their ears, fear of us never disappears. They coveted the things we made, paper, gunpowder, tea, carved jade. Raced to open our shores to trade. They sweetened the deal with the flower of addiction. They hastened the fall of the Middle Kingdom. Bloated, teetering, and decadent, grabbed what they could with contempt.
We watched the exodus of our neighbors, the migration of cheap labor, segregated in shacks along railroad tracks, deprived of wives and confined to women's work. Our men were shunned as feminine, sipping opium drops in a dream smoke dens, a cure for homesickness. Our habits were deemed degenerate, unseen, the loneliness. They tried to keep us out. They harassed, passed laws, burned down our tenements. Amid fears that the mongrel hordes would taint the national skin, we slipped in, became model citizens, swore allegiance, spoke when spoken to our best English. Corralled behind barbed wire after confiscating our property, our sons enlisted to prove to one country our loyalty.
The fumbled war exploded nightly on the news. Crimes my family knew would be forgiven. To them, we were just oops. We all looked alike. Torching villages, they went berserk, stringing into necklaces, ears, and fingers of the enemy. The invasion brought jobs, neon bar girls and red light districts, a nascent sex industry. We watched Saigon fall, the evacuation of the embassy.
Like the virus circulating in caves, yellow peril remained contained until a cough, a sneeze bloomed fear into blame. Suspect now are the things we eat, our predilection for the wildest meat, where the boundary between beast and man, our common human appetite collides on the Beadle's butcher block. The virus jumped from bat to civet cat, perhaps even the endangered pangolin.
Never mind reason or origin, a bone for broth or an exotic delicacy. What hasn't been done, stolen, or given throughout our entangled history?
You're the only choice for most, but not so for those who mean most to me. They toe the line while I hold my breath, hoping that they hold on to theirs.
It's now again your time to reflect and write. What do you grieve? Our entangled history? The war against black bodies? What have you lost? If you can learn to express yourself and embrace your grief, it can become medicine for our community. Tell us what you grieve. Share your voice now. It's a threshold. So we hesitate, as we so often do. It's like no other threshold we have ever encountered. One we can only cross once we imagine something new from what we've learned from loss.
I will remember this winter keeping vigil, you and I illuminated by a computer's glow. You were audacious, a beautiful obsession. I imagined you as a delicate thread, each perfect amino acid shimmering. I watched winter through a window, saw how the wind moved bare branches. I watched you enumerated, illustrated. While you danced through my imagination, I felt my chest tighten, edges pressed to me, faces, squares of faces, calendar boxes, this black room. You became precious. I imagined you as points of light, tracing shapes of highways on a dark globe. I hear the cool edge of spring, a blackbird's return. Dear vaccine, may you stay fantastically cold. May you travel farther than I can imagine. May you set smiles free.
Belfast, 2021. We glued our ears to the news as the body count increased on a daily basis. We became virtual prisoners in our homes and began to dread the catchphrases, stay at home, wash your hands, keep 20 meters apart. I'm not a city that likes being standoffish or socially distanced or told what to do. We are a city that greets the stranger with sayings like, "Voucher," and "What's the crack?" Then, when things were really getting dark, and we were facing another lockdown, we heard vaccine breakthrough. And we rejoiced at the words, roll out.
Let me close the distance. Let me hold my grandmother's hand and kiss the wrinkles on her knuckles.
Let us gather up close and personal where miracles happen.
It's a memory we'll share in years to come, pointing to the place we got it. Left or right arm, mostly. And the places we got it. Fairground, racetrack, old Kmart or Sears, school gymnasium, church parking lot, rural Grange Hall, shuttered restaurant. The places we met and loved each other.
At the vaccination clinic, blue stickers mark 6-foot intervals on worn conference center carpet. Round, like happy faces, but with feet where mouths should be. The man ahead of me wears flip-flops, toes bare, reddened, curling up at the edges when he walks. Tick-tock, slip-slap. ID cards, not empty bowls outheld. We shuffle in snaking lines, follow the pointing arm of a Red Cross knight. He herds us to lance-wielding nurses who jab us each alone. We wait for immunity, for grace.
It's the lines of us in gymnasiums where our friends held roller skating parties, waiting with our sleeves rolled. The volunteers smile above their mask and tip clipboards. The shape of the shoulders of the gentleman in front, the relief of his pulse slowing to, "I like to live." Outside stand two ladies holding hands, laughing with relief, while the sky carries on anyway.
We marvel at whatever is happening deep inside, ourselves being schooled by a few drops of miracle.
It's the invisible cloak we can wear for protection. Its power lies in the tightness of the weave. Every stitch carries a name.
You shot into the mouth of my angel tattoo. Right on the kisser. The angel's message is always, "Fear not." Now, dear vaccine, I can heed her good tidings.
Smiling my Thanksgiving under a mask, the efficient receptionist who took my form, the volunteer who showed me where to proceed. Thank you to the nurse with her kind voice. Thank you to the makers of alcohol swabs for cleaning the site on my left arm. I am grateful for the pharmacist drawing up the exact dose. The fine, painless needle. Where was it made, I wonder? The brilliant researchers in their labs day and night developing the vaccine. 15 minutes to reflect, then out to my waiting husband and feeling the sunlight on my shoulders. Next recipient in line.
On behalf of all old vaccinated people everywhere, last night I dropped a line to death, that arbiter of time, that preachy and insatiable realist, and said, "Step back. Recalculate, old taskmaster of the soul. Not so fast. Not so fast."
It's the silvery disco ball band-aid that the young nursing student sticks to my upper arm that gives me hope. The next step still feels shaky with fear, but this token of the vaccine and my privilege in getting one has echoes of dancing feet, colorful clothing, looser limbs, freer thought, and physical proximity. I want to celebrate. Can we celebrate yet?
Dear vaccine, I had to meet you. If not for me, for them. For my grandma, who I used to laugh and cry with over a bowl of oatmeal. For my little cousin who keeps asking when the next family gathering will be. For my mom, afraid she might pass out in the kitchen and awake in a hospital. I stood in a long line with others, waiting for your pinch in my arm. The lady in front of me looked like my grandma in her purple suit and large hat, shouted, "I'm going to church after this," and graciously gave you her arm. Each tiny syringe of you contains the power to bring the world together. We're getting closer to our Sunday gatherings and family cookouts, high fives, daps, and hugs. With you, vaccine, it gets easier by the day. I am so glad I met you. If not for me, for them.
Take a moment and share what you praise. We have so many things to praise. The brilliant researchers in their labs, the volunteers who showed you where to proceed, the kindness in the nurse's voice. Isn't there something awe-inspiring in our ability to love, grieve, and pray?
Dear vaccine, cura, we need you. Dear vaccine, cura, we need you and shake your hand in greeting. It has been some time since we shook anyone's hand. Sacrista Domine, we are happy to see you. We have been waiting for your arrival for some time. Your journey is done. You will now rest in our bodies. Like other healers before you, you will be there when we need you. The tale of your journey will be held in our collective story. It will be retold next year when we acknowledge the death anniversaries of our relatives and friends, and all those who try to fight the enemy alone. We will tell of the battles you fought on your journey, the battles against non-believers and conspiracy theorists. You will be known as a hero, a slayer of enemies, and like so many others before you, you will be known by many names.
I learned how much I like to be alone.
How much I like to be alone together.
Still, it will be good to be back in the world. When we're ready, when it's time, and it's safe, secure in knowing that even untethered
The space between us,
was always its own kind of love.
Dear vaccine, I waited for your touch, a lover's touch, tender, gentle, freeing me from bondage, to embrace, to gather, to hold hands. Your touch removed my fear, opened my heart, opened my doors, opened my life to the world. This fragile world forever changed. Perhaps wiser, perhaps kinder.
I never thought I'd miss my nemesis. Airport security. The line snaking, stretched end to end. It would be miles of cranky kids, tired travelers, dropped sippy cups and mouse ears, and
Where'd you put the passport?
but I'm ready now. Ready to board the plane to anywhere.
Let us sing.
Not just in showers or alone in our cars, but outside in gardens, parks, gazebos.
Then inside schools, churches, and cafes,
In duos.
Trios!
quartets and choirs,
Oh, let all divas and crooners come out from the silence of quarantine caves.
chanters, rappers, throat singers, come!
All yodelers and wild uvulators arise.
A shot for together is on the horizon.
So raise your voices in euphonious. Euphonious! Euphonious!
Joy.
In 5 weeks, I will get to hug my 91-year-old father. In 5 weeks, I will get to kiss his scruffy cheek. In 5 weeks, I will get to see him for the first time in over a year. See him for the first time since his wife of 67 years died. My mother, my hub. And we will laugh and cry as we pore over photographs, tell stories, and remember the time. We love, we grieve, we praise, we hope. As Naomi Shihab Nye reminds us, we are all a living poem. And we can all speak or sing our parts, a global chorus of voices. Poetry will not always solve our problems, but the making of analogies and metaphors provides possibility. Thank you for sharing your time with us and for sharing your authentic and honest voices. We don't get this opportunity very often. Let's cherish it with a poem, a community poem, our community poem, created from your writing. What We Learned While Alone, October 24th, 2022.
We love being unworried to share space. We love belonging to something greater than ourselves. We love happy hours! We love smiles, human touch.
We grieve the lost time that we didn't learn enough. We grieve lived experiences that children especially need. We grieve lost time and that time not being extended. And we grieve the tears of the first responders.
We praise science. We praise public health, human perseverance, our community for the collective and caring response. We praise the miracle of the vaccine.
We hope we learn something. We hope that people heal. We hope that we have a deeper appreciation for how fragile life really is. And we hope for more unity in our future.
What we learned while alone, together.
One more round of applause for the actors. Let's go! That's the premiere, you've all seen it. Yeah. If you're on the panel, please come on up to the front. We're going to set up our chairs right here and get transition to that for a short talk back. We hope you'll stay with us. We're going to have a conversation and hear from you in the audience as well. Thank you.
Thank you. My middle name is
have a quick panel discussion. I want to introduce our panelists who are here with us. We have one more who's going to join us on the screen from afar. So while she's joining us, I'll do introductions. And then, again, we want to hear from you in the audience, too, so get your questions ready. Immediately to my left here is Taryn Berhana, who's a lecturer and clinical instructor at the Kent State University in Kent, Ohio. Mrs. Berhana's current role is as a course coordinator of community health and nursing and primary care and health promotion as a nurse practitioner for underserved persons in Portage and Summit counties. Her varied experiences support her focus of assisting nursing students how to better understand the context of the communities they serve and how to advocate for vulnerable populations. Welcome, Taryn. Glad you're here.
Thank you, Tyler.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And then immediately next to Taryn is Shelley Lowe, the chair of the National Endowment for the Humanities. Ms. Lowe is a citizen of the Navajo Nation and grew up on the Navajo Reservation in Ganado, Arizona. As many of you will know, and perhaps this is no need to say out loud, the National Endowment is charged with ensuring a vigorous public life for the humanities in the country and in our national culture. And already great strides are being made under the new chairship and with the wonderful staff that's been assembled. So welcome, Shelley, and we're really glad you're here. Next to Shelley is Amber Emery Mayer, an assistant professor of dance at Kent State University. She's worked in the dance field for over 35 years and remains passionate and committed to providing a positive impact on dancers, students, teachers, and the community. With an interest in well-being and progressive growth of the ballet spaces in which she lives, Amber brings her acknowledged kinship with dance, yoga, meditation, and mental health care to her practices. She also served as the movement director for the production that we have just seen here. Welcome, Amber. Glad you're here. Next to Amber is David Hassler, the director of the Wick Poetry Center at Kent State University and a co-founder of this project. He was the playwright that wrote the performance this evening. David, welcome. Yeah. We're all friends already. My name is Tyler Meyer, and I work as the executive director of the Poetry Center at the University of Arizona. And I thought what we would do, thank you, maybe to start is ask each.
Dr. Elena.
Oh, and Dr. Very good, okay. And then joining us on Zoom, and I hope you can hear us, it's great to see you, is Dr. Elena Fuentes Affleck, the chief of pediatrics from Zuckerberg San Francisco General Hospital and vice dean of the School of Medicine at UCSF. Her scholarly work is focused on Latino health, acculturation, immigrant health, health disparities, and faculty development. She served in national leadership roles for the Society of Pediatric Research and the American Pediatric Society. She's an elected member of the National Academy of Medicine and the American Academy of Arts and Sciences. Thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Fuentes Affleck. So far and so near, we're so glad you're here. So before we open up to questions from the audience, I thought what we could do is just go around our panel. And I'd like to ask each of you to just respond to the production that we just saw from your particular area of expertise, from your where you work in professionally, the disciplines that you come from, the reflections that you might have on the performance, and maybe some of the questions that were raised by the performance. And I'll turn to you first, Taryn. And I hope we can just have a conversation with each other. So,
Sure.
Please.
So one of the things I wanted to bring up is because I did see the preview of it before I came as well, which was great. I was at the book launch, hearing some of the poems recited by the authors, by their authors, and the production here definitely does it justice, and it hits home. Isaiah Hunt's poem in particular about his grandma, and Caitlin's about the wrinkled knuckles. So from my area, where it all comes together for me is being able to acknowledge loss and fear and grief and move it towards hope in a way that is meaningful, so that we are making sure that we are saying to the world that these are not maladaptive behaviors, that they're coping mechanisms, and to be able to share them in a community sense, bringing it back to my community health nursing roots, is immeasurable. So I really thank you, Tyler and David, for allowing me and my students to be a part of it, because nurses don't like to sit in the sidelines. So it got the students front and center with helping, with helping to move our community forward. So that's my initial reaction.
That's
today.
great, Taryn. Yeah. Shelley, how about
Yes.
you?
Well, thank you, Taryn. That was wonderful. I think my reaction to watching the performance and hearing the words of everyone who submitted online around the world is that it was such a unique way to capture a moment in time that we all experienced, and we all had different ways of trying to deal with and cope with and remember. And the conversation is, where did I get it, right? Where did I get the vaccine? Where was I standing? Who was around me? What building was I in? Or what building used to be that I was in getting the vaccine? And it's such a unique way for us to look at this moment in time later and say, how did we experience that? How did we share those stories? How did we come together as a community, a global community in this one instance, and be able to say, this is who we are, right, as human beings, and this is what we're living through, and this is how we're dealing with it, and realizing that so many people were dealing with it in the same way and having the same experiences.
A connecting force. Yeah. Amber.
To tie into what Shelley said is, for me, being at the beginning of the creative process and watching it grow, and then having the opportunity to watch you all be part of it, it's really about this shared witnessed experience that we're having around the situation of the pandemic, but also the collective experience that we're having here tonight, and how the body and music, the arts, can help us express that, can help us make meaning of our shared living.
Thank you so much. I wonder if we might go to Zoom
Please.
next. Yeah. And Dr. Fuentes Affleck, I wonder if you might join us and share your reflections or thoughts. And thanks so much for being here. I know you've had a busy day too.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
We can, yeah.
Excellent. Thank you, everyone. I'm so sorry that I can't be with you in person, but I'm delighted to participate in this conversation virtually. I would say that my reflections are, and having read the book, I think that we have come through an experience that was unthinkable. None of us had ever experienced something like that. And when words have failed us, for the most part, we now find words that express what we experienced, our hopes for the future. So I think it demonstrates really the power of creativity, the need for alternative forms of expression, and feeling really grateful and invigorated by the conversation.
Thank you so much. Before we turn to David, and I'll have a couple comments too, if you have thoughts from the audience, there are 2 microphones in the aisle, and so we'll invite you to just to make a line by those if you have questions for us or thoughts in your response to the performance as well. So this is a great time to start doing that as those come to you. David, I wonder if you might respond after seeing this for the first time in its premiere form.
Well, it was so exciting to see it tonight in front of you all, and to see the robust interactions and ways that you shared your voices. And it made me think more clearly about theater coming together as a kind of ritual way of healing and processing. We've experienced this collective trauma, but I think that you can't heal collective trauma individually. We heal collective trauma collectively. And in an instance like this, bringing people together, it offers us that opportunity to sort of share, to realize we're not alone, but to go through an experience together that can maybe take us, to help us metabolize, to help us process and change what is inside of us. And I think the website that Tyler and I created with our colleague Naomi Shihab Nye was a digital space of that convening, a digital, when we were all remote during the pandemic, where people found solace in coming to the website, discovering it, reading responses on the gallery page, and sharing their own voices. So it was a kind of convening of a space, though in the digital world. And now we're excited to hopefully tour this production and to gather an archive of responses, beginning here at the National Academy of Sciences on October 24th, but responses from communities around the country to the play.
And can I say one
Please,
more?
yeah,
I would love
yeah.
to add that it will,
Yeah.
I love that it will be different every time. It
Yeah.
will reflect the community where you're at. I mean, these were very different responses from the ones in the room during the preview, and it was really, I loved the sense of humor that it brought out, and I
Yes.
wasn't expecting that. I mean, so that part I really love about this.
David, you remarked this iteration was much funnier in a lot of ways. The responses were.
We need to laugh. We need to laugh. It helps us cry. To grieve and to praise are both expressions of love and connection and reinforcing that. So I was really grateful for the humor tonight that you all shared and the laughter actually in reading together the scrolling responses. Really fascinating. A gift to see that tonight.
I think the one thing I would add to the comments we've already had is thinking a little bit about how much of this experience in the past 2+ years has ultimately been about division, or things that have caused us to be separate, and how that's deepened, and that this experience doesn't feel revisionist, but it feels as if we're finding a way to talk about the pandemic as a way to connect. And I'm really grateful for the platform and the performance almost as a tool to remind us that it's also a chance for us to be more connected and a deeper connection with each other. So any thoughts from the audience that you all might like to share? We don't want to hog the stage entirely. Reflections from you all? And there's 2 microphones. Not just one.
Here comes a gentleman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There always
Brave
needs to be
soul.
the icebreaker.
Yeah.
There has to be one. Yeah.
We praise you.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I caught the interview with E. Ethelbert Miller about this coming up, and it's the first thing that's gotten me out of the door in downtown in ages.
Wow.
And I'm really thankful. It's brought a lot of tears to me sitting back there. And I believe, during so much of the pandemic, I was just processing things with my ears and my eyes, reading and listening, but not really feeling so much. And so this brought it into my body more and gave more tactile feel for everything I was seeing on the news and stuff. As an older person, I see, listen, and a little slower. I wish the scroll was a little slower.
Good
Anybody
feedback.
else feel that way?
Yeah.
But that's the way it is. And then the one thing that I was reminded of, I didn't bring a cell phone, but I would have commented about the joy that I experienced seeing a lot of fathers and children during the day at the parks or riding their bikes. That was because of the pandemic and probably some other things. But so thanks so much.
That's great. Thank you. Yeah, perhaps this is, given the National Academy of Sciences, which has been an incredible host, let's imagine this a bit of a laboratory tonight, and we ran an experiment, so we'll slow down the text scroll. That's good feedback.
Good idea.
We're learning already. Yeah, another comment.
Sorry, I'm gonna lower this.
Yeah. Do what you need to do.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I think this is a really beautiful production, and I couldn't agree more that creating a space to heal together from this sort of collective trauma that we've lived through, which really changed and transformed over time and evolved in this very complicated time. And one of my questions, I was really excited to hear that you're going to take this on the road and take it out into different communities. One of the questions that I had is, given the diversity of our communities and the polarization, how do we have this conversation in an inclusive way? Because this group is in many ways diverse, but I think everybody's vaccinated. So you have a little bit of bias in this population. So just curious how you're thinking about that, because I think that's just really critically important. I'm sure you are. And if you're thinking about doing this in schools as well.
Great. Amber?
I love how he turns and points to me.
We've had these conversations.
We've actually had these
Thank you for that.
conversations. And in fact, when I first met David and Eric Schmiedel, and we started to talk about this, that was one of the things that we were discussing, is how can we engage and invite people from diverse communities to connect with what we're doing. One of our audience members at one of the previews that we did at Kent State last week made a very good point about the vaccinated folks versus people that have chosen not to get the vaccine. And that person talked about helping us to remind each other that we're still all a community. We're still all a collective body that has the right and the opportunity to make choices for ourselves. And is there a way that we can dwell together within this in a way that does not harm, but actually promotes healing? And these are questions that we don't necessarily have answers, and if you do, please let me know. But you know, that's something that we continue to contemplate. It's something that we want to be able to be very nimble to meet the needs of the communities that we're going to be working with. And yes, we plan on doing this in schools. Did I get everything?
Yeah, no, I think schools are a big important place where we want to bring this to. There's such and John Morris, one of our co-producers, is here, who is a teacher at Shaker Heights High School in Ohio, and talked with us about the absolute need to bring interventions like this, creative interventions, to help students process what they've gone through in the pandemic. And you know, a real crisis in our own mental health and resilience among that population in particular. So that's very much on our front thinking.
And some of that question was also about the national conversation. What is Shelley, not to put you entirely on the spot, but also thinking about your role in the agency and thinking about national conversations that are hard, and that how you might be thinking about this in your work as a public humanist.
So one of the things that I would say, particularly thinking about the work of the National Endowment for the Humanities, is to connect to the state and jurisdictional humanities councils, because they do have these dialogue programs. They do offer spaces and opportunities to talk about difficult issues and have those open conversations. They tend to do them, you know, in locations that you might not think about. Lots of them do them in bars during happy hour. Lots of them do them outside of, you know, formal institutions. And they bring in individuals that can speak to both sides or can speak to diverse perspectives. And this is really something they do. They know their communities. They know kind of those hot spots that they want to be addressing, but they know how to really go in it. They bring in facilitators that are trained that can have these conversations. And so there are various ways that you can reach out to the state and jurisdiction humanities councils for that.
Thank you, everyone. I appreciate your time and your energy and your thoughtfulness coming here. My question is for Dr. Fuente Affleck. I'm wondering about the perception of the medical community of this type of work, of incorporating the arts and humanities. Have we learned anything that you might care to comment from the pandemic? And where do we go from here? What might be helpful from the medical standpoint for us to look at and to study and to consider?
Thank you. I wasn't anticipating being asked a question, but I appreciate it. Thank you. I think there's a growing interest in medicine, in narrative medicine as an area, but that's more of physicians or other health professionals expressing themselves through narrative format. There's also growing interest in training ourselves to be more perceptive through art and, learning to interpret things. So I think we're trying to make physicians be more rounded, and a growing interest in physicians as writers, physicians as poets. It's still a nascent field. So I think that there are many receptive ears, and probably more receptive ears than before, but it's definitely an emerging issue. And a lot of people, a lot of physicians, a lot of other health providers have talked about the ways that they coped with the stress of being an essential worker and really doing hard work during the pandemic. People who found creativity in music, in cooking, in poetry, in other forms of expression. So I think that the time is ripe, and I anticipate that we will see more and more of creative expression from physicians and other health professions.
I just want to comment a little bit too about that. The activities that the doctor was talking about all fall into ways to regulate our sympathetic nervous system through our parasympathetic nervous system. And there's actually a certain type of brain wave that we're producing that provides us to have this calm, focused state when we're cooking, when we're making music, when we're doing drawing or making a design, when we're moving, when we're dancing, when we're practicing meditation. So I really appreciate what you said, Doctor. Thank you.
Any other questions from the audience? Yeah, please. Don't wait for me, just go straight to the mic.
Okay. First of all, an amazing production, and I wanted to say that what I really appreciated was connecting and humanizing the poetry and Dear Vaccine and the choreography. Just, I didn't understand, but I felt it. And so I come from a science background and not so much art. So you got inside the head of a scientist, which is pretty powerful.
Yeah.
And I wanted to ask about the music and also, of course, this is poetry and there was some music. And have you thought about going into song and so what are the complications, and have you, the creators and the producers, thought about, well, we can take music, we can take the poetry and create song, and then perhaps even rap?
Yeah.
Passing that down that way.
Eric Schmiedel, our amazing director, who's standing in the back there. Uncanny during the evolution process. Amber, our movement director, I shouldn't really say that we kind of just started rehearsing this from the scratch about 5 weeks ago, and not even. And Eric would just come up with these songs on the spot that were pretty spot on, or ways to, musical interludes, musical pieces. But from the beginning, Eric talked about the possibility of singing, that the actors would. That there would be there'd be some song material in the play, and it's an evolving piece. So I love the idea of rap. I love the idea of song. And I think that's something it was a collaborative creative effort. Our actors that you saw on the stage, and Eric and Amber, everyone brought in their own ideas to the rehearsal process, and we literally shaped it in that process, creatively, collaboratively.
I think it was maybe 4 weeks.
4 weeks.
Fantastic. Wow. Yeah, please.
So I'm digging into my general education background, and what you're reminding me of, all the mention of trauma is the word catharsis, right? So what you provided tonight is a way for us as a community to cleanse our emotions and really overcome trauma. And I thank you for that. It was wonderful. It reminds me of the work of Brian Dories and his Theater of War. And if you're not familiar, he's taking Greek plays and bringing them to modern audiences and tying them to just such community traumas and helping communities overcome them. And one of the things he's doing, and here's my question, is at scale, I know I saw a comment, never want to Zoom again, but he's bringing these to audiences through Zoom. So there might be a setting like this, but also 500,000, maybe 500 to 1,000 other people are participating through Zoom. And I wondered if you thought about scaling this work that way.
That's a great question.
Absolutely, and I've been in conversations with Brian Dories, who also happens to be a Kenyon graduate like Tyler, and I've been just a huge fan of what he's done in the last 11 years with Theater of War. And there is the possibility of actually Theater of War providing a platform for this production at some point in the future online. They have audiences of 15,000 registered in some of their online productions from around the world. So what's interesting about the interactive component, where people can text in, we had people remotely tonight, about 400 I think remotely, and they also could participate by just typing in. It's not actually texting. So I think that's a real possibility. And again, it's this idea of, he talks about in his introduction to his book on Theater of War, creating the digital commons. You know, the Greek amphitheater, the origins, it means to see both ways. You know, Greek tragedy, drama evolved out of a need to help returning warriors process their trauma from war. And it was a collective gathering and healing process, a ritual, a tool. And so he's done that on Zoom. And I think that's something that we're looking into as well. So there would be another Zoom call for that one person. I apologize.
Just one more. That's it.
And Tyler, I have a question.
Please.
So I'm wondering, we talked about who your audience is and kind of what was presented in the show. Did you get responses from individuals who were not fond of vaccines? And are they part of the book? I haven't had a chance to look at the book.
Yeah. I'm going to let Tyler answer that one because they started in Arizona, but no.
There's a few people there. We did, yeah, we did. And there are some responses in the book that we think of as, real hesitation, real concern, people worried that this is not for them, wanting it to be tested more, wanting to wait, interest but not yet. Those all show up as themes. And then there were also a range of of responses that were just, I don't want this. And all, with varying degrees of things that we've maybe heard as conspiracy. So I don't want the 5G implanted into my arm. I don't want to have my molecules rearranged, and my genes changed. And so we had to manage that. And so we early on in the project decided that if something was factual, based in science, that we would approve it, even if it was not something that was, but whatever its response was. And so that was our bar for moderation. And so we wanted to just make sure that minimally that it was based in fact and in science. And so we were careful about that. Yeah. And then those themes truly do represent across the spectrum of not all earnestness for what vaccination made possible. Do you want to say more, David?
No, I mean, we have now over 2,700 responses to the globalvaccinepoem.com website. And out of the 2,700, we got about 200. And there was a period when there was a sort of anger nationally in our country and attacking Dr. Fauci and a sort of coming to a broil, those voices. And we got a contingent of folks purposely going to the website to post profane language, offensive, or factually incorrect. And at that point, we put a moderation link on the website, a disclaimer, and we said, you know, when they submit, it came to us, and we would approve it. And we said any voice will be heard on the website as long as it is not making a factually inaccurate statement or using profane and offensive language.
But, yeah, good question. Any last comments from our panelists? Or another thought up here?
Here it comes.
There's another way in which there was collective response to trauma, which is a nursery rhyme. And you may remember it, ring around the rosy, pocket full of posy, ashes, ashes, we all fall down. And I've read that actually originated with the plague of the Middle Ages. So to this day, there's some link with that horrible trauma that killed about 50% of the population, 30 to 50% of the population during the 14th century.
Wow. Thank you. Yeah. Any last thoughts from panelists?
So since I just started. Yeah. So my last thoughts are, number one, I'm glad that we have a record of this, so that Ring Around the Rosies is not exactly, that one is not going to be our memory of the pandemic. Mm-hmm. And I'm glad you asked the question about people, you know, did you get responses? Yeah. Because it made me think about, at first I was like, well, why didn't you name the production Dear Vaccine? Because it's about so much more than that, and unless we invite everybody to that conversation when you take it into the schools, like the question that was posed earlier, then they won't feel like it's a safe space to join the conversation. So that's what I hope for it when it lands, especially in the high schools. So thanks again. Thank you for having me.
Good comment. I think one of well, I want to say thank you first for putting this together, for sharing it. I always say the power of the arts is that they can translate humanities for us in ways that we can feel, that we can taste, we can hear, you know, we can have that sense. And we tend to remember it longer, right, when we learn humanities through the arts. So this is a good way to kind of move that forward, and people will really start to think and remember much more than, you know, reading is one thing, but seeing it on stage and hearing the music that goes with it, it really kind of helps, you know, people take that knowledge away. So thanks.
Great. Well, I know one thing that I want is a personal Eric Schmiedel to play music behind me as I walk, and the rest.
Soundtrack.
Wonderful. Congratulations to all of you. You've been to the premiere of this performance. You've helped us smuggle a poetry project into the National Academy of Sciences. Well done. I'm just kidding. We were welcomed with open arms. And many thanks again to the cultural programs here at the NAS, and to JD and to Alana for your great support of this and for making this possible. Many thanks to our panelists, and then one more just very big round of applause for the cast and the production, which we're so grateful for. Thanks for coming. Stay safe, take care of each other, and hope to see you again soon. Cheers.